Hello and welcome to The Wilderness of Creativity, a platform for creatives and aspiring entrepreneurs to share their stories of survival. I'm your host, Lucy, and I'm so excited to share this creative journey with you. Working full-time and raising a small human has caused me to lose track and wander off-piste on several occasions, but I followed the signs and here we are, surviving the wild and feeling more connected and inspired than ever before. Whether you're a seasoned adventurer or just starting out, I'm here to cheer you on as you navigate this journey. Together, we will uncover practical tips and strategies for cultivating creativity, explore different ways of prioritising our creative energy when there are people to please and deadlines to meet. And we'll also discuss how we can foster a mindset that inspires connection, innovation and play in our daily lives. Tune in every month to hear how my guests find focus in a world that never stops buzzing and discover what it really means to take the road less travelled. Subscribe now to listen to The Wilderness of Creativity and remember to like, share and leave a review to show your support. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram, so come and join in with our conversations. And that's it. Welcome to your next adventure. After 2 decades in the classroom, Jenny Moses decided to take the leap and pursue her entrepreneurial spirit, founding Languages for All, a tutoring agency that allows her to share her expertise with children and adults alike. Now with a team of dedicated tutors by her side, Jenny's mission is to make language learning accessible and enjoyable for everyone. Through her work, she aims to encourage people from all walks of life to embark on a linguistic journey, discovering new cultures, perspectives and connections along the way. Let's delve into Jenny's inspiring story of survival through the wilderness and explore the ways in which she is making a difference in the world of language education. Where do you normally lead your sessions? Do you have like a designated
Look behind
space?
me. This is my classroom.
Oh, that's nice. Whereabouts is that in the house?
So you walk in the front door,
Yeah.
turn to the right, and say that we've got like 2 front rooms, and then the back room is the whole length kitchen, dining room, living room. It was separate, we took a wall out. So the one on the other side to this is another sitting room, a small sitting room that we call the snug. This was the kids' playroom when we first moved in. And I realised a year in, our kids stopped using it altogether and they just want to be in their own space. So they use the bedrooms. And I started coming in here. And at that point in time, I was teaching face-to-face in my dining room and then online upstairs in a tiny little kind of dressing room off Ivy's room. And then I just went, do you know what, I'm taking that room. And the kids were like, yeah, do it. We don't want it.
I think having that space.
Yeah, it's massive. Like I've got display boards up all the time. I've got all of my resources around me. I've got my computer set up. I've got my filing cabinet. I've got a desk. So I can teach up to 4 in here. And then I do bigger group sessions. I hire a place to do those.
Where did the idea come from for Languages for All?
So the idea started while I was still at Upbrook. It was COVID that brought me to that point of something needs to change. And working with young people, even in such a lovely setting as that school, where we were really fortunate that we were able to support a lot of real individual learners, I was getting so frustrated with the confines of the school system and how everything, it just feels like we're funneling kids towards one end goal that's somebody else's goal, not theirs. And, you know, having kids measure their self-worth against a grade. You know, I got a 7 last time, I got a 6 this time, I'm awful. No, they're just the constant assessment process. So, yeah, I think we got back to school after COVID. I think I'd had hopes that things might change, and they showed no sign of changing. We went back in 3 weeks later. I was forcing my students through assessments that they weren't able to take. I had to stick to the assessment time. Like there was no flexibility, and these kids were in bits. And I just thought, I can't do this anymore. I can't keep putting children's mental well-being aside for the sake of getting them academic qualifications. Like, that's the only important thing that matters. And at the time, the way everything was going with the government, it didn't look like anything was going to change there. We were still going to be stuck with the same system. So I started thinking, well, what else can I do? What are my options? And I think in the back of my mind, I've always known I would go freelance one day. My dad left the corporate world to go freelance when I was quite young, actually. And so I grew up with a family business running from our house and was involved at various points quite heavily as a student. But even from, I was taught how to answer a business phone and use a photocopier and do filing, really basic things. So I did all sorts with my dad over the years. And so I went to him and said, this is my idea. There are no jobs for me to apply for. I'm being made redundant. This is what I want to do. And he said, just do it, and became my mentor. And we worked through it. So I started with a blue exercise book with a page for each idea I had, where I would just jot things down. And it was brainstorming sessions at all kinds of times. I carried this book around with me everywhere. I just scribbled down notes. And then I looked at what was out there, what was the competition, what were the things I could get involved in. And I, followed that route. And ultimately, I realised I nearly signed up to a franchise. I didn't want that, but I wanted my own company and I wanted to do my own thing. So I did a business course and just started on the path. And I vividly remembered that the first day of the holidays, I put away all my resources in the little office I was using at home. And then I went and sat down and I didn't know what to do. So I rang my dad and he said, right, you've got to get going. Write a business plan, write a marketing plan. This is what you're going to do. And I started from there. And I think because I already had a client base, I already had a tutee on my books. I had another parent approach me immediately. And so we'd already started. There were quite a few students that came to me from Oxford that summer because they were going to a school where they had to do a brand new language that they'd not done. And I was able to support them in starting that off. Some of them stayed with me.
What languages do you actually cover then?
Personally, I can teach English, French, German, Spanish, and Russian.
Wow.
My reality is I now focus just on French, German, and Spanish. So I've done a lot of English teaching in the last few years. I've done a very little bit of Russian, but currently people aren't very interested in that. So I focus on those three, and that's really nice. And I have a lot of adult learners as well as.
Yeah, I've noticed actually that you're doing a lot more sort of bespoke sessions, like longer programs, almost like 6 to 8 week blocks.
I go, half termly really, up to 6 week blocks of lessons. They're an hour and a half long, evening classes, and it's it's a group of adults that are all interested in learning Spanish, and they want to learn it for a totally different reason. They want to go there and communicate, and so it's been really fun devising that course.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, and that's quite new for me, although I've been teaching for years. I haven't done a lot of devising my own courses because in schools you're so confined by you've got to follow the national curriculum.
Yeah, and you're preparing children for the exams, and you are restricted. Talk to me about creativity within learning a language.
So it's huge. I think it's not an obvious one. So I'm a really creative person, but for me, creativity is all words. And I am surrounded by people for whom creativity is visuals, it's art, it's making furniture, it's textiles. And that's, it's never been me. But words are everything, and language is words. So I think learning a language is one of the most amazing things you can do with your brain. The part of your brain where you store language and you use for language is also the same as you use for music. And so I hear language as melody in lots of ways. Hearing the different sounds that different languages involve is a really beautiful thing. If you can ever just switch off and listen to a foreign language being spoken, it's a joy. And so that for me is a big part of learning a language. The sounds are so key, are so important. And I think the other thing that I love, of course, is teaching. And so imparting that knowledge to other people is really exciting, and just finding ways to be creative with lessons, with the approach, with teaching styles, with content, with resources. It's really fun, and I follow certain teaching methodologies that are well known and followed by a lot of teachers. But what I love most about what I do now is the ability to be creative, to support the individual and their needs. And a lot of the students I work with, a lot of the children I work with have additional needs. They're struggling. I work with certain homeschooled students who just cannot access mainstream education. It's not the right situation for them. I work with a lot of adults who in the past were told that they were no good at learning languages. And a huge amount of adults come to me like that. And actually, I think, one, it's a lot to do with this need to make it academic and learn the grammar and push towards that. And two, I think it's confidence as well. And that's a big part of learning a language. You have to feel confident. Learners have to feel like they're good at it. They're doing well at it.
And the thing is, learning any skill, there has to be that element of curiosity and playfulness and vulnerability, I think, as
Yeah,
well.
absolutely. Vulnerability is massive, actually, because when you put yourself out there in a foreign country, that's it can be terrifying, and of course you don't know how that other person's going to react. Different cultures react totally differently to you speaking in a foreign language, which is something I find a lot of the time. And it's really interesting because in front of me, I have different personalities all the time. I have those that will not open their mouth unless they think they're going to be word perfect. And I have those that will just say anything and give it a go. Yeah, and that, I think that's a big thing. But you have to be creative in the sense of creating scenarios in a language learning classroom.
When I was learning French at school, I used to love the role playing.
Yeah, I bet.
I absolutely, obviously being a drama teacher, but as somebody who's coming to learning a new language, how do you meet somebody where they are with their learning? I wouldn't know how to do that. That's why I'm asking.
I mean, it's like anything. I have the subject knowledge and I find a starting point and go from there. Language is a pretty easy one. You always start with greetings because the first thing anyone's going to want to do is greet someone. One of the beauties of teaching adults is I actually, once I've taught them a few basics, because you've always got to think about, well, what structures are going to be useful structures to begin with to get the pattern of a sentence. So you've got that idea of how it goes and how it flows. There are key things in every language that you want to have an idea of. There are key verbs that you always want to get across and a few basic things. You want to be able to introduce yourself, say your name, have a little conversation about how you are. And then we branch out into really whatever they want to learn. So I ask my learners, what would be useful to you? You've just come back from Spain. What did you feel like you wanted to talk about? And that's wonderful because then I just go off and create that.
The importance of learning a different language and how that opens the world up to Oscar. I mean, I really want him to learn a different language. In your opinion, why is it so important?
Let's start with Oscar. So for him, he's still under 5. He's still got the ability to make every single sound in any language that exists, which is just an amazing facet of the human brain, isn't it? We're all born with that ability. It's to do with exposure. And so children that are exposed to a range of different sounds and accents are likely to be predisposed to be able to pick those up. So I'm a good example. So my parents are Irish. They moved to England to escape the Troubles in Northern Ireland. They both had different accents to where I was living in Essex. Growing up, all my friends around me had different accents. Plus, my parents are fluent French and German speakers. My aunt married a Frenchman. I've got 3 French cousins, and they were we always had music and songs and games and all sorts of things. So it was just there in our household. And so from a really early age, I was exposed to different sounds, different accents, different language. I just heard it around all the time. We sang songs. And I find mimicking an accent quite an easy thing to do. I can't do it from an English perspective, but when I'm speaking the language, that's like an easy thing. And interestingly, so can both my children, who were also massively exposed to foreign languages because this is what I do. And they're very interested. So there's that. There's the opening up that section of your child's brain and enabling them to, to just access that incredible function. Just some exposure early on means it's possible. There's the fact that people that speak multiple languages think differently because you're thinking the whole time, almost across cultures and across, even as simple as the grammatical structure of a language gives you a different perspective on life because different languages are used in different ways to express things. And that comes down to hand gestures and everything. Like if you ever watch an English person that really speaks French fluently, they will go full on French with the Gallic shrug and the woof. And it's so interesting to watch. When people do that. When I watch one of my best friends, we studied Russian together, and when I watch her go into Russian mode, she becomes a bit Russian, and it cracks me up to do. But it's absolutely brilliant to see. So there's that side as well. The cultural side, I think, is enormous, because for me, marrying cultures and considering how much we are moving more and more and more towards being this global society, it's essential. We're always better united. I think this is a big thing I talked about in the run up to Brexit, that being united was a much more important thing than anything else. And language learning is huge. It's huge to that as well, because when you really learn a language, you have to learn the culture. It's so embedded in it. Language is how we express ourselves, we express our culture. When you think about all of the different terms related to cuisine and gastronomy in the French language, because that's so important to them, relating to the weather in the UK, rain specifically, whereas other countries literally have it's raining.
Yeah.
So, it just says so much about us. And when you're learning a language, learners always want to know, well, what does this word mean? What does this word mean? And sometimes you have to go, well, it can mean that or that. It can mean a few different things. It's like got a positive meaning, and this one's got a negative meaning, but there aren't precise ones because they will use it differently. And that sort of thing you don't get until you really get down to properly engaging in a language. And I'm not saying you have to go to an advanced level. You just have to really, really engage and understand that difference, that all languages and all countries are different, the cultures are different, and then that just makes you a more open-minded person. It makes you more understanding of difference between people.
Yeah, and builds that empathy.
If more people did that, then maybe we'd be a more inclusive society overall. Politicians need to be able to communicate with each other. Unfortunately, English is largely it, but hats off to anybody that can go and I'd love to see a politician or even a monarch, and I'm not a monarchist, but to go and actually speak a foreign language. Yes, that's what we should be meeting people at their language level as much as we can, just to forge better relationships. We want to have good relationships. But then there's trade, there's business, there's economy, there's everything. Germany is so important to the financial markets of the world. And people are dropping German, schools are dropping German like hotcakes. And it's so short-sighted, because the universities then are saying, well, we need German speakers. If you apply to do German ab initio, we'll give you a reduced grade offer, because they need them. They know the business world is crying out for them.
I'm learning so much from this platform.
I think it's essential in life, but that growth mindset, I was brought up with that. I'm so fortunate in the parents I have, who just have never thought anything to turning their hand to something new. My nana was like that as well. My nana continued to learn French. She decided she needed to improve her French when her daughter moved to France and had children. And she continued to do that well into her 90s. She's an amazing woman. And just that ability to try new things. And my parents are very like that as well. They're very open-minded. They're very forward-thinking. My dad's in his mid-70s and still running his business. In fact, we have a new little project on the side we've got a little collaboration going on between the pair of us as well now, which is really exciting.
I want to hear about that. Can you talk about it yet or no?
I can. It's coming, but I can't say when it will be on the market yet. But his background's IT, and he's written an app to insert foreign language characters in anything when you're typing. Basically, it's very easy on a touch screen. It's not so easy when you're typing. Now, I've been using this app for a few years. He created it a few years ago, and I couldn't live without it. It's so useful.
So explain to me how it works then.
So basically, at the moment, you either set up your keys to do what you want, or you learn key codes to insert apps, and they'll work in certain things, but not in everything. This will work in anything. So you set it up to configure it to up to 3 languages of your choice, and then you can switch between them, and it comes up like a little bar. And you can use that as a guide. But now I've just mastered them, and it's a very simple Control-Shift letter, and that adds the accent, and I can switch between my 3 languages. So
wow,
it is amazing. So we're looking at schools, universities as our primary, but also language exams. There's an increasing number of SEND students who need to use a laptop, and then they'll get marked down because they haven't used accents. It's crazy in a way. This will make it easy, and what we want is it just sort of becomes everybody's normal way of working in all those settings, and that we can get it exam board approved because it can run without Wi-Fi. So
this is amazing.
yeah, it is. I mean, that's my dad's IT know-how. And this is the incredible thing. I mean, he's self-taught in that his degree was modern languages, it was French and German. And then he went off to work in the corporate world and decided he hated it and gave it up and took a massive leap of faith. And set himself up to write software, and that business went through so many incarnations when I was growing up. So I've seen so many different things going on, and I think something my parents have taught me is that you're just never too old to learn. There's always something new to learn, and so learning about business has been so exciting for me in recent years. I have loved that, and creating a business that is my own, from the name to the logo to the ethos. All of those things, they're 100% mine. And I've learned so much about the business world, about the financial side of things and how to manage that. I've learned about marketing, social media, working with other tutors. I have other tutors that work with me now as well, and how I've set that up legally.
Do you know what's coming across, Jenny, is, I mean, like, you have got the fire in your belly.
Yeah.
I can hear it and I can see it. And something that's also really, really striking me is, the influence and the encouragement of your dad. Like, you hold him, up there as it, somebody who's absolutely been such an inspiration to you.
Oh, yeah. And my mum as well. I mean, my mum decided when she retired as a French and German teacher. So she's been a massive influence on my choice of career, and my choice of studying languages, because mum was the one that was at the forefront. I didn't even really know dad had studied language for a long time. And then when she retired from teaching, she decided to take up art. And she'd been told at school she was no good at it. And she went, well, I like it. And she did. And she's an amazing artist.
This is the thing, isn't it? It's like, do you know Sir Ken Robinson?
Yes.
Yeah. So this idea of educating our children out of their natural talents or their love of being creative.
Yeah.
I just get so frustrated with how we funnel, like you said, our children through this exam system and getting them to the end, and they just need to get a job, they just need to contribute to society financially, they just need no, where is their love, their passion, that's what motivates them. So why aren't we capitalising on that?
And that's where that's actually where I see the job markets of the future going. Of course, we are always going to need services. We're going to need teachers. We're going to need medics. There's a lot of service industries out there that are essential. But I think young people are so amazing in the way in which they embrace this ability to go on their own. If you look at influencers and what a job market that is, it's just incredible.
It's incredible
what it's become and how much I've learned from that. And I think, as a parent, I don't want to limit my children at all. Whatever idea they have, whatever they think they want to do in life, they could do. I've got an incredibly academic son who could probably succeed in anything he wanted to do. But his passion is all in the arts, and it's drama and it's English and it's writing. He loves drawing. He loves making things as well. And we've just gone, brilliant. Do it. Absolutely. Because I see that freelancing is probably the business of the future. I mean,
I think
it's a huge world, and once you become part of it, you realise how massive it is and how wonderful and supportive it is too.
And so rich and diverse, and I want Oscar to just do everything and be everything he possibly can. When I was choosing my GCSEs and when I was choosing my A-levels as well, I remember distinctively sitting in the careers office and the teacher saying to me, well, you can't have everything. You have to choose a path.
Yeah.
And, at that point, I was really sort of torn between wanting to be a teacher because it was something that I was so passionate about. I love education. I do not want to do anything else. That is my vocation. But at the same time, I also love dance and drama and music and the arts and being creative and doing all that sort of stuff. And as I'm getting older now, I'm realizing I can, and you're the proof as well, that you can ebb and flow. You can do everything if you put your mind to it and step out into the unknown, because that's exactly what you've done.
Yeah. And it was, it was terrifying. Don't get me wrong. It was absolutely terrifying. And I'm incredibly lucky with my support network around me. One, my husband he's just been a massive, massive support and just said, just go for it. And he supported us financially because I wasn't bringing in much at all to start with. And he just went, you know what, we're just going to make cutbacks and we're just going to make it work. This is big. And I think really down the line, it's something he would love to do as well, to go freelance and run his own business. He's an incredibly creative person too. But also having my dad, is my mentor. I have another close friend that runs an educational drama business, and she was brilliant in the early days of just picking her brains about things, and she was able to talk to me about how she set up and how it worked for her. But doing it at my stage of life where I've got a big mortgage and I've got 2 kids that also need supporting, and it was really scary, and it's been a massive learning curve to get to where I am now. I've got a much better idea of who my ideal client is, what I want to say yes to, what I want to say no to. I had to do a lot of things before I got to that point. And I would turn things down now. If I don't want to do it, I won't take it on. But I've also built up this team of other tutors so I can pass stuff their way. I have another ex-Upbrook teacher working with me who's just incredible. And I'm very, very lucky to have Kim on board because she, such an amazing teacher and so open-minded in her approach. And again, it's that approach to the individual, because a big part of what I want us to offer, and anybody that works with Languages for All needs to be on board with this. It is about creating bespoke lessons. They look how they look for that individual student. I think a good example is I currently have a student that has, I think I've mentioned her already, has a quite serious needs in terms of she cannot access full-time education. She's been out of school education and homeschooled since she was in year 8, and she's now in her final A-level year. And it's been so important that I and another tutor that's working with her, that we've been able to build a really good rapport with her. And that's, finding a way in was essential at the start. I'm really lucky. I have dogs and she loves dogs, and the dogs have been the icebreaker. And my dogs have sort of almost become my teaching mascots.
Oh my goodness, how beautiful.
I have adult learners who are incredibly anxious, and they come because they know they can stroke a dog while they're learning.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
It's amazing. I think the power of having animals around when learning there's nothing like it. And you just, in a group type setting, the individual cannot have their needs met in that way. And I know teachers are incredible people who are constantly trying to do this within the confines of a really rigid system. It's just impossible to do. And I think no wonder that teachers are burning out and leaving the profession in their droves, because it's just so hard. And who do you feel you're letting down? You feel you're letting the kids down. Teachers don't go into teaching for anything other than the vocation and the desire to help young people and shape their futures. And it's so limiting. It's so hard.
Hello, Lucy here, and I hope you're enjoying this month's episode. I'd love for you to help spread the word. There are several ways that you can do this. 1, you can subscribe to the podcast on your favourite platform, which will ensure that you never miss an episode. 2, you could share it with your friends, your family, your colleagues who might be inspired by the stories that we're sharing. 3, your reviews and ratings are incredibly important. They help new listeners discover the podcast, and they give me valuable feedback on how I can improve. So, if you've been enjoying today's episode, please take a moment to leave a review. Your support is what makes this possible. I'm on a mission to inspire, motivate, and empower fellow creatives to take the road less travelled, and I am so grateful to have you along on this journey with me. Okay, let's get back to the episode.
cutting of funding to the arts is just, it really kind of chokes me a little bit when I think about that divide that's creating between rich and poor. And I think, we're not an incredibly wealthy family, but we're well off, we're comfortably well off. And we choose to plough a lot of money into our kids' hobbies and interests, which are all art related. They both learn musical instruments, they both attend a band, they both do various drama activities, music, all sorts. We pay for all of that. We pay for LAMDA.
Because you value it.
We really do, because it's what makes our kids tick, that creativity, but the schools don't provide it. And so as that doesn't happen, it falls to us as parents to ensure that need is met. What about the parents, the families that can't afford that? That it's just so awful that's the way our society's gone, and that the arts are viewed just, they're just not given the importance that they need in life, in my opinion. And I've always felt this, and I think languages aren't necessarily considered art subjects, but to me they 100% are.
I think they
art
are
subjects. They're about expressing yourself. There's similarity. I remember choosing my A-level options and being told by one teacher I was limiting myself because I was choosing 2 languages and I should have maths or science in there. But then I had a meeting with another teacher who also happened to be the head of languages, and she was like, it's fine, don't worry about it.
Look what you've achieved. I mean,
exactly.
Who says that to a child who is obviously sort of driven by languages and learning and I don't know.
I think the mistake a lot of people make is this idea that our qualifications are the only thing that we can follow, and that means everything. Well, that's not true. I have no formal business qualification. I did a course, like an introduction to business course, but mine's all self-learned. So's my dad's. And, he's been running successful businesses for nearly 40 years now. So make no mistake, it's totally possible to achieve things, even if you don't have a formal academic qualification in it. And if you want one, get one, by all means. I'm working towards an A-level in Spanish myself. It's what drives me, and I love it. And it's really useful for me as a teacher of A-level to take a recent A-level and get to know the course.
I'd love to go back and do some A-levels. I'd love to do an A-level in psychology, actually.
Just do it, I say, and there's another joy of being freelance. And also a big thing for me was I signed up for a 2-year course for A-level. I got to the end of the first year and went, I'm not going to be ready in a year. I'm like, well, it's up to me. Nobody else is driving this, just me. I'm going to extend it. I chatted to my Spanish tutor and I said, I could end up extending this for the rest of my life. She said, that's fine. We just carry on working together. We have a great time. I love it.
Oh, the freedom that it gives you.
Freelance equals a lot of freedom in that respect. And it's a real joy. And also, I feel like I can now be such a great role model for my children.
Yeah.
In that, like I've had modelled to me over the years, that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what path you took academically. It doesn't matter what job you've done. If you want to branch out and learn something new, it is never too late.